Well, might as well get started.
Might as well get started, I suppose.
While we,
Are we sound checking?
yeah.
Sound second?
Is that the distance you will be from the microphone?
I don't know. How about this?
That's
Now.
looks good.
We're at now.
How about now? We good?
Everything that happens now is happening now.
When will
then
Go back to then. I can't. Why not? We missed it when? Just now. When will then be now?
Soon.
Yep.
820 miles in 2 days.
It's a lot of miles.
It's a lot of miles. Comped miles for work,
Good.
but a lot of miles and cows
Went and
and
shot
rocks.
some cows?
Yes, once more. Yeah, got work done.
But you're neither going to hang nor frame them.
No. Heavens no. Not these cows.
These cows will primarily be used digitally.
Yeah. And
Digital cows.
those cows are not my cows.
Oh yeah, that is a card game you guys play.
I mean, I couldn't exactly play that just myself driving around because it would be
Yeah.
pointless.
It's that classic photography meme. Shoot the kids,
Yeah.
hang the wife, frame them all.
Yep.
Yep.
Precisely. It was a little sketchy getting into this ranch for work because it's in the middle of the bluffs over by the North Dakota Badlands. And by the time I got there, it was dark, 300-foot cliffs with no railing, and about 6 feet of visibility thanks to fog. So it was very much a very strange text from John. Very much a pucker factor drive for that last 40 minutes or so. But we got there. We got the job done. We got back to town today.
You're in town today?
Yeah. Who would have
Wow.
thought?
Well, I hadn't realized
I made it back
that you were back.
for the podcast.
I mean, as far as the people listening know, you could be edited in from across the state,
Well,
like we did for a couple
For
of
me,
years.
forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to have like the tables turned at some
Although-
point.
Although you're kind of like the mastermind behind
Yeah,
the pod, so it'd be weird to have you like be the one who's separate.
Yeah.
But it would work.
It would work as
Just-
long as
It would
as
work
long-
the exact same way.
Yeah, pretty much. I would just have to have a microphone with me. Because we're not doing one of those recording on the... Okay, we have done it where we've used subpar audio recording equipment
Particularly
out of necessity, but... Yeah, well, we'll try to limit that in the future, I guess.
keep a certain level of quality as you hear our dishwasher in the background.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once
I'm
it was
hearing.
the air conditioner.
I'm
now
hearing
it's-
so much dishwasher.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of annoying, honestly. James sounds very much quieter than he normally does.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
guess-
Just like to my own earbones.
Oh,
Like not
gotcha.
to
Not to the
the
recording.
levels on the recording.
Oh, okay, good. Because I guess I'm tired, so I guess I get more
That-
subdued.
Subdued.
Indeed.
And white noise in the background certainly doesn't help anything.
No.
Once it was the air conditioner, now it is the dishwasher. And we are on day 25 of October without having to run our own heat in the
Yeah.
apartment. Likely to run out the month, although we're looking at some wintry weather this weekend.
Oof. Well,
So,
I have plans to go home this weekend. So.
yeah, well, it's we're talking like flurries. It's, I think,
Right.
you know, not
It's
significant.
stuff that'll like hit the ground and melt instantly because the ground isn't cold enough to
Right,
keep it.
exactly.
I've been very pleasantly surprised at how temperate the autumn has been this year.
It has
Mhm.
been a lovely autumn.
It has not decided to get so cold so quickly that the trees all just die and there's
Yeah,
no
there was
color. There's like
actual
actually been
color.
color this year.
It's like
Yeah.
a gradual
rare-
transition. It's like, oh, nature's great.
I was out in Detroit Lakes this weekend, and it was surprising because some of the trees, like, you know, they turned like in late August, early September. But then the majority of the trees seemed to, at least where my parents are, seemed to turn like within the last couple weeks. So it was just a lot of radiant like yellows
Would it be
and
like a
orange.
tree variety type of thing, where it's like
Yeah.
certain trees get? I think.
Yeah, like the oaks and the maples. The maples seem to turn first and drop their leaves, but like the oaks and the aspens and stuff were all in full color this weekend.
And that was like more what's around your parents' place.
Yeah. We do have quite a bit of maples, but also lots of aspen and ash and red oak. So quite radiant colors with some rather pleasant weather. Made for a lovely fall weekend to attempt to teach my nephews how to deer hunt. So we didn't get the deer part of the equation, unfortunately.
Sure.
They were showing up on the trail camera, but they just weren't coming. They decided it was a good week to go nocturnal.
You didn't get to make them watch you cut a deer open and say, "This is where meat comes from. It doesn't come from a grocery store."
No, but that's coming. It's going to happen. But they, even though I have to commend them to being the young sportsmen they are, because they said they just enjoyed spending time with the uncles and being out in nature. So they get it. That's what.
Yeah.
That's half the.
Uncles in nature, man.
Yeah. Anyway, how's you guys' week been?
Not so fantastic for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my lots of things not happening that I would like to be happening.
Oh yeah, for example, your transportation.
Yes. My car just decided it doesn't want to go over 20 today. And I'm really, really hoping it's not transmission.
Is your car Leo DiCaprio or something?
Apparently.
Does it already have a name?
Wow. Wow. Took me a second to get what you were going for there.
I'm proud of that one. I'm mostly proud because you didn't get it right away, but then you did. I don't usually get those. It's usually just instant. Oh, that was good. But yeah, unfortunate. Sorry.
Yeah.
Transmission
So hopefully,
problems.
hopefully not transmission. Hopefully it's a fuel pump.
Yeah.
And it's just not getting the gas to move. Really, really hope. Because I probably would just junk it at that point. Because
Yeah.
it's probably going to cost more to fix than the car.
How many miles does it have on it now?
230,000.
Oh, yeah. That's unsurprising.
The engine's only got like 100 on it.
That's
so.
right, because they put a new engine in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the muffler just
Even
fell
still.
out the other week, so.
And lots of brake stuff I've had to replace in the last, like I've spent almost 2,000 on it in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So this would be the nail in the coffin
You've probably, this is the second of
for-
Riley's beat up cars that we will potentially be having a sort of funeral for. Although, did the Strat ever get taken to the dump, or is that still in your mom's driveway?
the Sebring.
Oh, Sebring, yeah.
Sebring got sold to Wild Bill.
Oh, that's right. You did get rid of it.
The Strat was what we called Andrew's car.
Yeah, it's the
because
same.
It was a Dodge Stratus, but the US fell off on the back.
Yep, it's
so
the
it just
Strat.
said Strat in the back.
Yep. That's and it's a
But
it's General Motors. It's the same
Yeah.
vehicle, just different
Yeah.
brands. But as we once sang to a certain friend of ours, would you like to go for a ride in Riley's Sebring?
I can't believe I still remember that. That was just
That was
like
such a
a
funny-
30-second gag.
No, we did.
That has stuck with us for a long time.
Because you and
now.
Jasper were hanging out, and I was just sort of locking up the Newman Center, and we were just chilling, and we just started spontaneously singing about Riley giving Jasper a ride home in his
Because
Sebring.
Jasper's like, I need a ride home. And I'm like, well, I have a car. I can give you a ride to where you're going.
I was like, this is
We
kind of
just
like a musical, like
Burst
opening.
out into a spontaneous musical number.
Yeah. Well, I have a ride. I can take you. Da 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 da. Yeah, very much that sort of night. That makes me think. So as of recording this, I believe Riley and I will be attending the dedication of our alma mater's Newman Center, the new chapel.
Yeah.
That will be quite fantastic, I'm sure.
That's
I'm really
pretty
curious.
cool.
Obviously, it'll be known by the time this comes out, but curious to see who we'll see from the old days.
The old days. And we have a, shindig on Saturday that
Yep.
we should get some more
Yes.
old acquaintances and friends.
That should be a grand
Should be a
old time.
delightful time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
I'm
to
looking
that.
forward to having to tell 40 people that I'm no longer in seminary.
Yeah, because they're like, hey, Riley, what are you doing here? I guarantee you that's like how it's going to start.
Like, yeah, they're just like, oh, what are you doing in town? I'm like,
Mhm.
Well, if you're listening to the podcast, you would have learned about it 2 weeks ago.
You should be listening to our podcast, you sinners.
Yeah,
Anyway,
this is the only place I talk about my life on the internet anymore.
actually,
like,
though, like,
I don't post on social media
No,
just ever.
because that's for losers.
That's for people who are attached to internet points and what other people think about them. on the
Lurkers
internet.
only. That's going to
Lurkers
be my
only.
social media
See.
my social media
Lurkers only.
platform. Lurkers only. Nobody posts
It's
anything.
it's just a blank page.
You scroll through the feed, nothing there, baby.
It's just like empty component, like frame of what a social media post would be. There's just no content, and it's an endless loop of that.
You know how
like,
they
like-
have like the suggested text on Facebook or Twitter or something, and it just says, "Please, somebody say something." It will just be the thing, but nobody will ever say anything. And the post button doesn't actually do anything.
Right.
That'd be a great gag website.
I should build that as a programming project.
That would be funny.
And it's just all ads.
Just start aggressively promoting
Actually,
it
no
on,
ads.
like,
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
an
ads are
alternative
content.
social media site like Mastodon.
I have a
but
trend.
also-
I have a trending page that's also blank.
Then I'd have to buy a domain.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
True, but
But it's
For the
funny.
bit.
Idea where I just start a Patreon.
for the bit,
Like, give me 50 cents.
we're starting a new
You get
program.
an account.
If 20 of you give me 50 cents, then I can pay for this domain in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
20 cents, 50 cents a month. That's all you got.
There we go.
That's like the.
We'll make it happen.
That's like the registration fee. If you want to make an account on the website, you got to like pay 50 cents a month to keep it running.
And to
Because there's no
increase
ads, obviously.
increase like listener engagement, or will reward those who listen to the podcast. You'll be the only people who know that about this.
You'll be on
platform.
the ground floor of lurkers.com.
And that it's only a bit because we will promote ourselves. Yeah, you can check us out.
Follow us on Lurkers.
Follow us on Lurkers or lurkersonly.com. And like follow our podcast. Like we'll have a page because we never post anything on any of our social media. And that's mostly my fault. But yeah, Lurkers. You got to follow our account on Lurkers Only, and then of course on all the other social media platforms, just to get people's curiosity. But you have to be listening to this episode specifically to know that it's just a bit.
I mean, we could make this like a verified 2020 bit where it
True.
just goes on for months.
Yeah.
And like, if we mention it in the episode outro, of course, everyone would kind of
Well,
wonder
that's
what they're
true.
talking about. So
Right, and so you check up. Well, what is this website?
I guess
Or
they
we
would
could
only
just
be
make
let
up-
on that it's a bit if they'd listen to this.
A lot of drama on lurkersonly.com. Like, no, there's things that's been happening in the world, and it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to comment on it. But we all, we're all like, no, you know. There's a lot of tension.
Is there any like DM function, or is it there? No.
It's
Yeah,
just,
I think DM function is okay.
yeah,
Like,
At that point,
that's
it's just a
appropriately
messaging
that's appropriately
platform.
lurking level.
yeah. Because you DM people, it's impossible to be a lurker in a chat where it's composed as two people. But if like two or more, or three or more,
Where 3 or more are gathered in my name.
nobody will
There
reply.
are no more lurkers.
Yeah. Every group chat's got them. Usually Nathan.
Yeah. No, it's fair
Yeah.
point out.
There's the occasional solid gold meme from Nathan.
Yep.
He's not a
Solid
driver of
gold?
the content. Yeah.
Every
Thank
once
you.
in a while, Ben will just put like something incredible in the chat and disappear for 3 more months. And then there's Absentee Dad himself.
Absentee dad. I still have to change my name in the group chat. I'm just
Oh
too
yeah, you're not
lazy.
Future Father.
I am no
Snack
longer future father.
anymore. It'll
Snack.
just be value.
Now we have to do formerly future father snack
yeah.
to keep it unnecessarily verbose.
Yeah.
Right. Are you going to change?
But
his-
I also will do it myself so that
Yeah.
I can drop it on the. I think Ben is the only one who doesn't know yet.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's
suppose.
probably figured it out by now.
Has he?
Well,
What?
well, actually,
On what basis could he have?
that's
figured it
true.
out?
That's true.
If you listen, to the
I have
podcast.
told
Because
nobody on any platform.
that's
you know.
true. I wonder.
I don't
suppose
think
there's a good chance he would be there tomorrow. You'd think
tomorrow. No, maybe this
weekends.
weekend.
Yeah, that's true. Thursday is kind of a weird time for people to travel, but you would imagine like during the weekend.
Yeah,
At
the
least.
dedication's really more of a for the rich schmoozers
Yeah.
that put the money out to build the place.
All my entire lucrative mug club subscription probably got me on the donor list, and I do some additional giving here and there too. So, but I thought it was funny when I did get an invitation because I was like, okay, dang, I guess I'm big cheese. But I mean, it'll be intriguing too because with the impending weather, at least in the western half of the state, to see who was able to make it. But yeah, altogether, very exciting moment. Something 7 years in the making. Yeah, because when I was a freshman at the Newman Center is when they kicked off the campaign to start this. And now,
when I left, when I was a senior in college, when I was a senior in college is when
they were moving
into the new place, and I could bow out. So yeah, it was
they had their last.
thing.
I didn't go, but they had their well, I wasn't back in town yet, but they had their last daily mass at the Newman Center without a chapel. This afternoon at 12:10. So that's kind of the end of an era right there too. Since like spring 2019, they've been without a proper chapel.
It's like now it's official.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of the pictures
Oh
with all the stuff in there because I've been in there a few times.
Mm-hmm. For required practice, because you'll be singing.
Ostensibly,
Yeah.
mostly just to gawk at it.
Yes. There'll be like a couple things that aren't done, but I mean everything you need for a functional church, except for the pillar capitals, it seems, and stained glass windows. But those will come. Those will come in time. So,
If you build it, they will come.
yeah.
Speaking of pillar capitals,
Yes, we're not the astute makers of the pillar reporting or church reporting blog. We are the Palladian Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
We are doing a philosophical on
That's
something.
something near and dear to our heart.
Yes.
Very near and dear to our heart.
Fargo.
In a world where one man will decide whether to pull a lever and kill one man, or not pull a lever and allow 5 people to die, find out in Philosophical.
You knew it was coming at some point.
It had to come at some point.
We were perusing the streaming platforms in search of something to review this week, and we're like, you know what? Fargo's there. None of us had seen it yet. It's a Coen Brothers classic. It's certainly a well-known cultural icon.
And also being from Fargo,
the titular town.
the town that it is named after, the film.
Yes.
There was a whole show after the fact.
There was a
there?
like a series. Yeah, like it's sort of each season is like a different story set in the universe, quote unquote, of Fargo. Which is funny to say out loud now that I think about it. in the Fargo universe.
The Fargo cinematic
The Fargoverse.
expanded universe.
Well,
Into
yeah.
the Fargoverse.
But famously, Fargo, the film, has very little to do with Fargo. In fact, the opening scene and title are about all the movie has to do with.
And
Fargo.
a couple scenes shot. In
Yeah.
the middle.
I believe, at least according to Bryant, that there was only one scene actually shot.
And it was like outside
And it
of
was the
town.
It was
one
by, like,
outside
a
of town
fence.
on a random fence in the middle of winter.
The one shot that was ostensibly not in Fargo.
Yeah,
It was supposed to be just outside of Brainerd.
yeah.
Anyway.
So to do one feedback we consistently get is that our
Synopses are
Synopses are
insufficiently
too long.
succinct.
yes, yeah, we'll go with that. It's like sort of see my weaknesses. I care too much. Kind of an explanation. I like that. So this is what we're gonna do. Okay, so Mr. Lundegaard is a car salesman in the Twin Cities. For the uneducated,
That's Minneapolis, St. Paul.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's in a spot of financial trouble where he needs a bunch of money. He has a rather rich father-in-law, but he doesn't have a great relationship with that rich father-in-law. So instead, he comes up with this harebrained scheme to pay these guys from Fargo, or that he meets them in Fargo. He agrees to pay them to kidnap his wife, hold her for ransom, and split the money from his father-in-law with these two ruffians. So the plan doesn't go quite well. Things go off the rails pretty much right off the bat. After they kidnap the guy's wife, they end up killing 3 people in a rather unfortunate series of circumstances, catching the attention of Margie, the chief of police in Brainerd, Minnesota. So she
Famously
starts working
home
the
of the
case.
Blue Ox.
Yeah, famously home of the Blue Ox.
Paul Bunyan and Baby the Blue Ox.
Yep, and that's
With
definitely
a very
the
notable statue on what Highway 10 is the only one that you could drive all the way from Brainerd to Fargo.
yeah, and that is absolutely not Highway 10, nor is that the actual statue,
it would be
but
210, but that's
Or
neither here
210.
nor
yeah,
there.
210. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. But
Right, 210 out.
anyway, the show we'll get into the inaccuracies. Anyway, so the Brainerd police chief, Margie, starts investigating, and so she figures out, okay, so these people were bystanders.
We're just going
okay.
to slowly slip into our Minnesota accents here.
Or-
over the course
I
of
am
the-
not gonna
Overly
lie.
grossly
Like,
Minnesota
The day,
accents.
like the couple days after we watched this movie, my internal monologues accent was dialed up to
Oh,
11.
no.
Like, and I just sort of relished it. Anyway, so she starts investigating. She kind of pulls all the strings, and she slowly uncovers what happened, basically.
Yeah, she traces the guys back to the
Mr.
kidnapping
Lundegaard
and Mr. Lundegaard.
Has an awkward encounter with a high school guy that was crushing on her back in the day, rather awkwardly. But then she eventually finds and catches the remaining convicts, and traces things back to Mr. Lundegaard's plot
And-
to get money. In the meantime, Mr. Lundegaard's wife, father-in-law, and one of the criminals all get killed in the course of this film, because the father-in-law is like, oh, it's my money, I can go get handle the handover of the cash myself.
Then when he shows up,
for
one
the
of the
ransom
criminals is
money.
like, who are you? I was supposed to meet the other guy.
And
then shoots
he
him.
tries to play hero and pull out his own gun, and then he gets shot. And
then he gets back to the lake cabin where they're keeping her, and she's dead in the corner. He talks to his partner. He's like, what happened? He's like, yeah, she was being loud. And he's like, okay, well, then they have a kerfuffle over the money, right? And he's like, I'm taking the car. He's like, but we were splitting the car. You're going to pay me for half the car. It's like, no, I'm
So
taking the car. I got shot in the face by a guy. I'm
kills him
leaving.
with an axe and throws him in the famous wood chipper.
And that's where Margie finds him, out in the back with the wood chipper by the lake.
Yep, makes the arrest, and kind of like, I just can't believe you do something like this over money. You know, there's just more to life. I don't believe it. You know, just try. And that's kind of where the movie ends. So a very succinct
The film is
compared
very
to our usual
Yeah,
standards.
even like you don't need to say a whole lot about.
The thing
what
about
else
Coen
that
Brothers
happened.
movies is that the plot has a lot of simplicity, but a great deal of character depth. They're very much character studies.
They're very characterful films.
I believe the Coen Brothers are originally from like Iowa or like Minnesota or something like
Somewhere
that.
in the Midwest.
Yeah. So in their other films, we've done
We
Brother,
did.
Where Art
Oh,
Thou.
Brother, Where Art Thou? Yep.
Yeah. And they did the True Grit remake.
Yep. And
No Country for Old Men, which we also watched recently. And several other well-known films. Oh, Hail Caesar, I also watched. That's a pretty good one. But yeah, they have like these sort of quaint, not quaint, but like very idiosyncratic characters. And they seem to have a great handle on people's like idiosyncrasies and like subtle personality traits, and they really bring those to the fore with a very simple storytelling, because we don't really know the exact reason why Mr. Lundegaard is in trouble. We just know that he's sort of
He's been backed into a financial corner and doesn't know what
he's just
to
a
do.
sleazy car
And he's-
salesman.
Possibly missing a couple of cars, which might be it.
Yeah. So
Although I was under the impression one of those was probably the one he handed off to the criminals.
That's
also,
entirely
yeah,
possible.
which is how Marge is able to track him down with the,
with the dealer plates and
Yep.
such.
So I guess what do we like about the film? This is something I'd put off watching for a long time because everybody talks about Fargo.
Oh, you're from Fargo, like
Any-
the movie.
Anytime I ever encounter a person not from around here, they're just
The
like,
movie
"Where you
comes
from?" "Oh, Fargo." "Oh, like the movie Fargo?" I'm
Yep.
like, do people actually sound like that up there? I'm like, sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Like, having heard about the film from people who live here, like, oh, the accents are exaggerated and it's not accurate. I watched the
We
film and
started
I'm like,
watching the movie. I'm like,
there's like a couple of actors who are like, yeah, you're really putting it on thick. For the most part, I'm like, no, I've had a conversation with that woman.
yeah.
I
I've
have been
heard
in this.
I've heard a banal, like nothing story from a guy in a small town like that before.
That's like one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. It
Yeah.
adds nothing but character.
He's
to
just
it.
kind of funny looking.
In a general sort of way.
Yeah, funny looking how? Oh, in a general sort of way. I figured you should know. Okay. Like, calls the cops because a guy was acting weird, but didn't really have anything specific to say about it. Is such a backcountry Minnesota thing to
And then
do.
they're like, oh, then they go on a little bit of extra conversation about the weather or the game or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yep, that's how we talk out here.
Yep.
I feel called out, but also like seen.
Yes. That is. I was pleasantly surprised with. It's very much a black comedy.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like the majority of the humor for me came from knowing all this cultural stuff that they managed to hit on the head pretty well.
And even just Margie at the crime scene being like, oh, geez, what a shame.
Oh, and she's like 7 months pregnant and just kind of like over it. And so just kind of casually solving this grisly crime scene in the middle of the winter.
Oh, yep, there he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Oh, gee.
Oh, geez.
She's trying to interrogate these people. It's like, so what do they look like? I don't know. Just kind of funny looking. Could you be a little more specific? No. They're just kind of funny looking. Okay.
The big guy reminded me of the guy from the Marlboro commercial. Although it might be
yeah?
just because he was smoking.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really more of the central Minnesota accent,
Yeah.
whereas the northern Minnesota accent is a bit more flat.
Yeah.
And you don't open your mouth
Oh my
too much
gosh.
because it's too cold.
Well, it's a little cold out there. You can't open your
Like-
jaw too much.
So one scene where they're like this guy calls the cops who encountered this guy like was encountered by one of the criminals or whatever, and it was filmed in my mom's hometown, and that guy sounds exactly like my uncle, who funny enough was the sheriff of that county at the time when they filmed this, because this movie came out in 1994. And so it's crazy looking at some of these places. A lot of it was filmed in Canada because, as the story goes, the winter they were here to film, or in the area to film, was like sort of one of those. Every few years we get like a warmer winter with not as much snow, and that happened to be one of those winters. But where my mom's from is very far in northern Minnesota, and so I was like, wait a minute, I know that grain elevator.
Because there's like the one grain
Yeah,
elevator
in downtown. Right on the railroad tracks, but it was like, man, that guy sounds exactly like my uncle. He was talking to, and they sort of lean into sort of the backwoods Minnesota
they
type of
do.
accent,
And
but
it adds to the character of the film.
but like watching like these scenes from the 90s and stuff, just like, man, like, because that's when my older siblings were pretty young, and I was born a few years after this movie came out. But like looking back at our old home TV videos and stuff. Like, that's how life looked in these 90s, like, sort of middle-class houses and stuff.
Yeah, the furniture, it was Lindegard's wife was in the
Yep.
kitchen cooking, like something.
She was
or
mixing
other.
something in a bowl, and we literally have that exact same bowl.
Two of them.
Two of them
In our kitchen.
kitchen.
Because are those the ones we commandeered from Newman, or were
Well,
they?
no,
I
one,
think those we inherited from the old yellow house.
one,
Okay.
one was, and the other one my mom bought for me from a thrift store.
Okay. Which
Would have been from that era. It's like people, and like they didn't have that, but everybody's mom has like that classic old Tupperware that's 30 years old and still going strong.
oh yeah, they were built different back then.
Yeah, built different.
And just like they're really able to capture the way conversations happen.
Yes.
Like we've hinted at that. But
Mhm.
they just like they're sort of subtly nonsensical, just like you're just shooting the breeze to shoot the breeze, and the
Yep.
substance of what's being said has It's
pretty
far less
minimal.
important than
Yeah.
the fact that you're just there politely talking to each other and
Smiling
smiling and
your head.
nodding. Said, "Oh yeah, you
It's-
sure, yeah."
It's a
Oh, gee,
character study
good
on
there, then.
Minnesota nice is
Yes.
really what this film is.
'Cause, like, there was
With
that
the
whole-
notable exception of the criminals.
Well,
Right.
even so, like it's meant to contrast because fairly grisly crimes do occur in Minnesota, over the years. And it says it's based off of true stories. It's really a matchup of two true stories that happened like in different parts of history. Like, there was a scheme like the 1920s where a guy tried to have his wife kidnapped for the ransom and insurance money or something. And then like another story where this lady was like kidnapped and they actually, funny enough, like found them in Detroit Lakes where I'm from. I guess doxed, but whatever. But yeah, so like it's sort of this juxtaposition of like grisly crime and overbearingly nice people, as we're so like even the scene where like this guy saw Margie on the news from high school and she remembered her from high school and had her out to dinner and stuff and was trying to like, he's very lonely and so he tried to have her out for dinner and she tries to sit next to her in the restaurant and she's like, yeah, I'd prefer if you didn't. And then
it
he's
was
like,
like-
"Oh, I'm sorry. Oh no, it's okay. It's okay."
It's intensely awkward, but overly polite.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and he's like coming unglued because he's lying to her about how
His
married
wife
a friend
died
from
of
high school and
leukemia.
His wife died just to get the sympathy points.
And then she calls up her friend later and she's like, "Oh no, he just kept bugging her. She's fine. You should call her." No kidding.
Yeah?
Oh
No
yeah.
kidding.
No kidding. It's just like sounds like my aunt. She sounds exactly like my aunt.
And then there's like there's a couple of characters who will have like the one thing about her husband is like painting, right?
Yep.
He's like a painter, and
He's,
so
he's trying
she
to get
gets
into the
home-
duck stamp competition, which is a thing in Minnesota.
So she wakes up with him in the morning. She's like, "Oh, so you still painting? How you doing?" And then like later in the
I
day,
gotta go into work. It's like 4 a.m. Oh, I gotta get up and fix you some eggs. Oh no, you don't
You
have
gotta
to. do that.
eat breakfast.
You gotta eat breakfast, Margie.
Can't skip breakfast, Margie.
Yeah.
But then later in the film, someone walks up to us. "Oh, hey, you still painting? You still painting ducks?"
Yep.
And that like happens like 2 or 3 times where it's like they start the conversation the same way and he responds the same way.
Yep.
In that
That's kind of a classic like Coen Brothers joke
Right.
though, where like they just keep
But that's
repeating.
also just kind of how interactions happen.
Yeah.
Like somebody does something, so you ask them about it every time just to be nice, And,
Yep.
and you got that canned response for, "Oh yeah, it's going good."
Yeah. Oh yeah, hanging in there like you do. Yeah. So, oh god, and there's just the scene at the beginning where Margie and like they get up and eat breakfast, and then she walks out. All right, time to go to work, and then comes back in. Prowler needs a jump.
And I like the way that scene was actually framed, where it had him at the little breakfast corner, and she walked out the door, and you could see her the entire path down the stairs and out the door. And so it stayed in that one position, watching him eat breakfast and her go out the door, then come back in and ask for a jump.
Yeah, and about the perfect timing for that, like, because, those of us who grew up around here have had that sort of experience at some point in their lives.
Or just there's a scene where Mr. Lundegard was, he came out from a meeting with he was trying to get some financial investment scheme going on so he can scrape the money without kidnapping his wife type of thing.
Yep.
And so but his dad his father-in-law shut him down, and it's like, he walks out into the parking lot and his windshield's frozen over because it's winter in Minnesota. And he starts aggressively scraping and then just frustratingly starts taking it out. It's like, ooh, I felt that.
Yes.
I've had that kind of a
We've
day.
all
Not where I
had
want to
that-
kidnap my wife or anything.
No.
But like, it was a kind of cathartic, like,
You've had a day where your car is caked in ice, you're
And that's
scraping
just-
it, and you're just having a bad day, and you just get frustrated and throw your freaking ice scraper.
just throw your freaking ice scraper at it because, it's just so frustrating. It's cold out there,
Mm-hmm. And one scene I got a kick out of it. It's just like a subtle little joke, but it's really funny. It's like this guy, one of the criminals, like goes like this parking garage in Minneapolis to like try to set up where the cash handover is going to go down or something. So he drives all around this practically empty top of a parking garage and cross parks in a random spot anyway.
because
Like he goes several times through spots where it looks like he could do like a perfect parking spot, and then he just
swapping plates, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like searching through that, but just like the sight of him like parking poorly when he has all these open spots where he could park normally.
Well, it's like everyone forgets how to park when the snow covers the lines.
Yeah, it's like the lines are still there even if you can't see them, you know. But yeah, gosh, it's
Welcome to Whose Lane Is It Anyway? Where the laws are made up and where the lanes are made up and the laws don't matter.
So I guess what else do we like about Fargo? I mean the movie that is.
I mean,
it's a great study. It's kind of like Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Like they really kind of. I mean, granted, I'm not a Southerner, but from like the amount of time I've spent in the South and like people I know from down there, like including family, it's like a pretty interesting study of like the culture of the South, especially in the 1930s, which obviously I didn't have access to, but it very much so. Well, Fargo being one of their earlier big movies, I suppose.
I mean, we caught the tail end of Minnesota in the 90s.
Yep.
So, like, we know what it's like a bit.
You guys caught the tail end.
That's true. You were still in Denver.
I was.
Oh, you were, weren't you?
And none of my family is really super duper Minnesotan, so I have something of an outsider's perspective and something of an insider's perspective because I've been here for so long and through much of my
worlds,
my childhood. So yeah, I have an interesting, like, I don't have a perceptible accent, and I don't have a lot of the cultural things, but like I get it because I've been around it for so long.
Yep.
Like, I don't think I have an accent, but then I like lean into some words, and it's like, oh, I do.
Well, and then when you hang around with family, it just comes out.
It just comes out. You know?
Yeah, it just dials up to 11.
You get a bunch of Minnesotans together, it'll go.
Oh yeah, especially because that sort of Iron Range Minnesota accent, you know, the real thick like they have in the movie. Because Brainerd's kind of on the tip of the Iron Range there, and that's your neck of the woods,
Iron Range territory.
Well, you're like right by there, Brainerd. There,
I'm right there by Brainerd. I know all about that Paul Bunyan statue that totally is on Highway 210 going out to Highway 10. That's like the way we go to Fargo, I suppose.
Oh yeah, right next to I-35.
Right.
I-35, which is not for another like
probably 2 hours or so.
Well, I-35 goes through Duluth.
It goes through Cloquet.
Yeah, Cloquet. Yeah.
So that's probably right about 2 hours from.
The thing is,
Brainerd.
Like going through Brainerd, I don't think that would be the most efficient way to go from Fargo to the city.
I know, but I thought about that because I noticed that as they were going, but. That was their setup spot, so they were probably going to set something up or drop stuff
like
off.
You go from Highway 210, or Highway 10 to 210, because Highway 10 does go to the cities from Fargo.
Yes.
So it makes some sense, especially if you're trying to go out of your way.
Because their kind of base camp was in Brainerd, kind of out of the way. Yeah. On one of the lakes.
This whole episode is just a Minnesota lore dump.
Yeah.
It's
we have to do it because the movie doesn't have much to do with Fargo, so we are talking about the movie, but just have most of the podcast be about
Minnesota lore. Here's a title for you.
Minnesota lore. It's just shit posts like Paul Bunyan with like bass boosted.
Deep fried.
Yeah, deep fried Paul Bunyan and Babe.
Paul Bunyan with the laser eyes.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
Real
good there.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It's interesting to notice like the subtle differences between Minnesota and the Dakotas because if you live in them long enough, you can kind of tell the difference. North Dakota accent's a lot flatter and
it's because it's a lot flatter out there,
Yeah, a lot flatter, and you have to deal with the trees, or there's not many trees out there, and you're just kind of sort of blown by the wind into sort of a silent stoicism out in North Dakota. But Minnesota, you're just glad to see somebody. You poke your head through the trees, and there's your neighbor over there.
Oh yeah, what's he up to today, huh?
Oh yeah,
going down the lake?
I got over to talk to Ted. He's out there chipping the ice. Got to make sure he's okay. It starts to sort of blend into almost a Wisconsin kind of a thing as you go further east.
In certain parts, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's because it's right on the.
They're culturally very similar. Sort of the Scandinavians and and the Germans, you know.
Yeah, but they won't say that to your face about the cheeseheads, you know.
No, and you'll go further in almost to Canada, and you know it's a little more subtle too. Not quite like North Dakota, but almost a Native American sounding thing. This is kind of how my uncles talk, you know, up way up there, and yeah, it's something. I'll tell you what. People don't say "you betcha" as much anymore.
No, it kind
a
of
lot of
fallen
"you
out
bet."
of favor.
My dad's like pretty heavily like a "you bet" kind of a guy, but
For sure.
yeah, for sure. That is
For sure staying around.
a big Minnesota thing. Oh, for sure.
I will occasionally catch my sisters like, you know, showing each other something. It's like, oh, for cute.
Oh, for cute.
For cute.
Yeah.
Oofda.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, oofta Pete, man.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has had very oofta days before.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, I've heard her say that multiple times.
Yeah.
It's like there's plenty of those isms that are very true. Now, a touch exaggerated here and there, particularly since not all of the actors were Minnesota native.
No. They did a decent job of getting in the ballpark.
Right. I think especially the character of Margie was like, oh, this is a woman I've met in the church basement before, isn't she?
Yep. Yep. At the
In
potluck.
the Lutheran church basement, she brought the
The
potato
tuna
salad.
casserole.
Mm-hmm. And her husband does the duck paintings. Those are pretty nice.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
Good
you won
job.
the 3-cent last year,
Yeah.
don't you know?
Yep.
Yeah. No one uses the 3 cent. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, they do. It's a big deal.
Yep.
Everyone uses that when they up the postage.
Oh, no, that's
just like
fantastic. That's
her-
great.
They're
Good for you, Norm. Her husband's name is Norm. Oh, man. I suppose we could talk about the movie.
we could. We've
It
been
kind of
tangentially
is going back and
We've
forth,
been dancing
which is
around.
about as I expected it to go.
Well, it's
Um,
about how those kind of conversations go.
so-
You know?
This is just the meta Minnesotan discussion
Yes.
of the Minnesota movie.
Yep.
That's named after a North Dakota city.
Yes. Much like we spent most of our lives in Minnesota and a lot of recently in North Dakota, but not compared to the rest of it. So I guess we can get into the transcendental parts of it. Truth. What is true in Fargo?
The
movie.
wages of sin is death.
Yes.
Quaint.
Thematically, I think it's interesting the juxtaposition between Minnesota nice and horrible human tragedy and murder.
And
Because it's sort of like the setting of a brutal Minnesota winter is sort of fitting because you have all these overly nice people living in a very harsh environment where you have these very like well-meaning characters in a very faced with a very brutal and grotesque murder story. It's thematically interesting to me
and it's interesting, like,
because people are still, despite the Minnesota nice, people are still prone to being deeply flawed and complexly motivated people who make dumb mistakes. Like Mr. Lundegaard paid these guys to kidnap his wife and expected it all to turn out okay. But it didn't turn out okay.
like on some level, the air quotes Midwest nice attitude is a cultural facade almost, where it's like we're just people and we act
With a certain level of sincerity to it. I will add.
absolutely more so depending on where you go, because like
Yep.
there's some parts of Minnesota I'm like you're just smiling through your teeth and cursing me on the inside.
Yes.
Where other parts are like they're populated by very genuine salt of the earth people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
You get a mix of both.
it's a little bit of both. Some of it's like passive aggressive, and some of it's genuinely like neighborly and caring.
Depends on how bad the high school's meth problem is.
Right. But speaking of high school, there's also that conversation, that date with the other guy where it's like he had these veiled intentions.
Yep.
Just, very...
I just thought it'd be nice to meet up,
just
you
thought-
know.
I just saw you on the news, and I realized I haven't called you in a while. How's it going?
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's 3 a.m.
He's just a very socially awkward guy that nobody liked in high school, and he's just,
Nobody likes now, and it's...
yep.
But it's like kind of that just pleasant mask over something kind of dark.
Mm-hmm.
But also that you got to deal with the dark somehow.
Yep.
And so you kind of smile and, oh, geez, it's kind of a mess in here, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Everybody has their favorite way of distancing themselves from the grimness of life when it presents itself.
We were having this conversation the other night.
Our flavor of that here in the Midwest is conflict avoidance and passive aggression
and humor.
Being overly nice.
Yeah. But we were talking, this being a black comedy, we were having a conversation after we watched the movie the other night about how humor allows us human beings to create distance between us and tragic things.
Yes.
Or difficult things.
Right. Like, good comedy is a tool to help you wrestle, grasp, integrate really deeply impactful stuff. Like, you see comedians like Chris Rock talking about his experience as an African American, and like, he jokes about things that if your hermeneutic was like joking is merely making light of something, which it can be, but if that's your hermeneutic, you'd be like, you shouldn't be joking about that. But really, it's this attempt to communicate this troubling circumstance and like give himself the ability to kind of process that really difficult thing in a way that doesn't cause him to shut down.
Yep.
And that's where comedy becomes a useful tool for humans, is allowing us to process things, to wrestle and to grasp them, and not merely making light of things.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people think is all that comedy is. And so it makes it a lot easier to tolerate people who are making off-color jokes. For instance, when you're like trying to evangelize, you're like, you can if you understand that's what they're trying to do, it makes it a lot easier to stick with them and like not get mad that they're doing that. They're just like, they're trying to process it a lot of the time.
Because I've had it happen plenty of times where somebody makes like an off-color comment, but then you sort of probe deeper into like their motivations and they actually engage with you seriously. Yeah. But yeah, and that's sort of like I mean, I feel like it's probably a fairly universal human thing, but it seems like particularly in the Midwest, like humor in the face of like kind of sucky or even grisly situations is sort of the default. And humor and good nature, at least outward good-natured, polite behavior, are just sort of the currency of the realm almost in interactions. You got to do the finger wave on the steering wheel when you drive by.
One finger
people,
for a stranger, 2 fingers for someone you know,
and a full wave for your buddy. You know, well, you stop the car, roll down the windows, and yell at him. It's your buddy.
Oh, hey bud, how's it going?
Yep, exactly. So I think that, at least from the bit of research I've done about this movie, like the Coen brothers intended it to be like an almost sort of harsh criticism of the place where they grew up. It's still like, it can't help but be like sort of endearing all the same in a very strange way, because the story of this movie is juxtaposition of grisly circumstances with an outside seemingly fake friendliness, which can be understandable. It probably makes sense that this is the movie about this region that made such a splash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know the wood chipper is at like a visitor center or something in Fargo, but
Like the one they used for the film?
the actual prop from the movie, yeah.
Gotcha.
And they have the foot sticking out and all that. I know it's in town here somewhere, but goodness, obviously in a black comedy about murder, not a lot of goodness.
I know a whole lot of that,
But Margie and Norm are definitely.
And this is one of the things I think is really cool about this movie, is it shows you like Margie and Norm are like the Midwestern done right.
Yep.
This very nice attitude, the kind of pleasant. They're just normal. Like, the guy's name is Norm, for goodness sake.
But he's got his job at the bank, and she's got her job at the police station, and he brings her lunch and makes her breakfast and stuff, try to take care of her.
Makes her breakfast at 3 a.m. when she gets a call for work, right? So it's like, you can tell they're the kind of couple that have been married for a while, and they love each other, but it's like become a routine of love, you know?
And that's what faithfulness calls for. You respond to your spouse's needs. You sacrifice, you give of yourself for them.
Margie is a very
it's not good.
Margie's a very accomplished woman. You know, she's 7 months pregnant, solving a complex murder case and stuff. But when she gets home from all that, at the end of the day, she is genuinely happy for Norm for having his painting, you know, win the stamp contest, or 3rd place in the stamp contest or something. But, you know, just very it's a very
And then when she's...
I've seen plenty of people in my life that have very much that sort of Margie Norm marriage relationship.
And that's good. It's like
Yeah.
it's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do this culture in a good and constructive way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you've got this like
Juxtaposed with
paragon of the Midwest
Yeah.
couple, juxtaposed with just kind of the messiness other people slip into.
especially like the
Those people from the Twin Cities.
like
Those same
actually though like
Like all
unironically. Let's tell you about the cities.
all the bad people come from the Twin Cities or Fargo.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
They don't even come from Fargo.
Right. They
Yeah,
were
they're
just
not
there
even
to
from
meet
Fargo.
with
They were
them.
just
Yeah.
in Fargo.
That's actually funny.
But yeah, Jerry Lundegaard and his wife apparently don't have the best relationship because he's willing to like have her kidnapped to solve a money problem. And so like I think the movie very much is like sort of a contrast between the Lundegaards and what is it Norgard?
Olmsted.
Or what was Margie's last name?
No, her maiden name was Olmsted, I think.
Olmsted, yeah, but what was
It was something like very
Very-
nail on the head.
yeah.
Northern Minnesota.
I mean, so is Lundegaard with the 2 A's in the middle.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that's a very it's a very Midwest or very Minnesota thing. Just a lot of Norwegians and Scandinavians generally.
But yeah, you've got that central contrast between the two couples and the function and the dysfunction. And like
Gunderson,
Gunderson, there
Marge Gunderson, and Jerry Lundegaard. Oh, that was Steve Buscemi. Okay,
Yeah, you didn't know
it's
that?
like one of the main. I know the name Steve Buscemi, but I couldn't really put the name to the face.
The Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
You
Gotcha.
see those bug eyes, you can't unsee them.
He was the funny-looking guy.
He was the funny-looking guy
Just-
who's
not in a
funny-looking, and
particular way. Just
not the
nonsense.
blonde Ryan Gosling.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, the Gundersons and the Lundegaards. That's the contrast in the film. Beauty.
Because like
What is
outwardly, the Lundegaards are successful. He's like a partner in a successful like car
sale-
dealership.
Mhm.
And they're-
But car salesmen, especially in this part of the world, it seems, have a very like sort of sleazy.
and he
reputation.
keeps trying to upsell them on the True Coat when it's installed at the factory before
Yeah.
it gets there.
He's just marking them up on something that's already on the car. You know, good to good or good for nothing.
Oh, jeez, let's get this over with.
Yeah. Beauty. What is beautiful about Fargo? Not much, one might say. But if you look a little deeper, the writing and the cinematography of this film are very simple but effective.
And they're like kind of honest, you know. It's like simple, effective, but like true to the character.
It's very unflashy. It's just kind of boom.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
It's-
Here's the bleak snows.
It's not a
Here's-
particularly flattering look at like how this part of the world gets at winter, even though it's shot in Canada. That's how Minnesota looks most of the time too.
Mm-hmm.
So like it just is kind of unfiltered. It's just kind of like it presents it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Neither selects the best of it nor the worst of it. It's just kind of those overcast, kind of gray days that we get so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like Minnesota has some really beautiful things when the sky is crystal clear and
Especially, like,
sun
yeah, we were
coming
just talking
over
about at the
fresh
beginning.
snow.
Yeah.
And like there's some really
Like the
beautiful
frost on the trees
vistas
in the morning, you know.
Oh yeah,
But
Real
they
early.
don't really select for any of that. They're just
No.
like, here's a typical
it's
day.
just a good vertical slice of just what the Midwest is.
Your average day, yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's
But like there were some really clever and creative use, like cinematography. Like I mentioned the shot earlier when she was walking out to get her, and then she walks back in to get the car jumped. But there are just a bunch of other shots like that where the
Some great
framing was
dialogue.
different, or the dialogue, the way it followed the dialogue.
the guy,
was-
yeah, for Steve Buscemi's character, like going on and on about how this guy doesn't talk very much. He's like,
I
"See
can
how
deal
you
with
like
total
it.
silence.
See how you like it if I stop talking. See how you like it. Can be completely quiet.
And so even the criminals had like a characterful charm to the way they were written,
Which is really weird because of how terrible people they were.
They were absolute slime balls, right? And you could tell that, but also it was kind of fun to watch them be awful when you didn't have to skip through the motel scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
through
Be
the
warned.
motel scenes.
There are a couple of instances of fornication to be aware of. But...
And only one of which is mildly important to the plot because the guy breaks in and starts beating him up.
what was my train of thought, though?
I don't know, funny looking guy.
Yeah, it's kind of funny looking. But yeah, that seems to be the... I've heard people sort of compare, and I haven't read any Flannery O'Connor, but I've talked to people who kind of compare Coen Brothers' work to like sort of Flannery O'Connor, and her style of like sort of like this sort of grotesque, jarring images of like fairly normal seeming people. Yeah, I haven't really like read any Flannery O'Connor stuff, but that'd be an interesting connection to explore. Yeah, I know my sister and your brother have done that together, like reading Flannery O'Connor stuff. But
sounds like something my brother and your sister would do.
But slice of life Americana is something the Coen brothers seem to capture in really interesting ways.
Yeah.
Unity, what brings everything together?
Fargo.
Fargo. Yeah.
Not
But
really.
not actually.
Not really.
Not
but
really.
From one limited aspect, it brings all of the characters together and precipitates the events of the film, but
Much like our lives.
much like our lives.
Indeed.
But
like it's very much that kind of tragedy of what's the point of crime, honestly. When it comes up like that.
Yeah, that closing little monologue from Margie as she's taking in the funny-looking guy into the
It's
old.
like, why would you do it? Why?
well, and the way she solves the crime is she's not particularly alarmed or impressed by the grotesqueness of the crimes. It's just sort of
She's
the
like-
banality of evil. She's just sort of nonchalantly deals with
Why
it.
would you do it?
I just don't get it.
I just don't get it.
Yeah.
She's too nice to get it.
There's more to life than money, you know. She like looks at it in the rear view.
But it's like, yeah, the wages of sin are death, and like in this scenario, everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong.
Yep.
To the point where like far too many people die for what was a make some quick money scheme.
Yep. Well, and then like the movie and other Coen Brothers films that I've seen just kind of show that there's certain people who are just evil.
Yeah.
And
Well,
don't
that
have
was
much.
like the entire point of No Country for Old Men.
But like the final guy remaining, he's just quiet, doesn't really give a lot of reason for doing what he does. He just acts impulsively and
It was like
decisively.
the cop pulled him over and something was going slightly sideways. He shoots him, and then has to shoot two more people because they saw him move the body. It was just like,
Shoots the guy's wife because it doesn't matter to him as long as he gets the money, and shoots the other guy to get more money and throws him in the wood chipper.
yep.
It's just a very like sort of pragmatic, unfeeling,
Barbaric.
barbaric behavior out of somebody who's kind of funny looking, but you wouldn't really know.
So it's always the quiet ones.
Something that happens a lot in modern film, and to some degree of success here and there, but it seems like modern writers have this need to dive into the villain's motivations. This movie doesn't bother.
I mean, you know their motivations. They're there to make some quick money.
No, but I mean, like, what deep-seated childhood
Right.
origin story caused them to, shoot somebody in the face?
Well, what origin story caused? They don't even go into what Mr. Lundegaard's going through.
No.
Or why he's like the way he is. It's just like sometimes people do evil. Because
Motivated
it's part
out of
our
base
fallen
greed.
human nature.
Base, pride, and greed. Like, the cardinal sins are really sort of the driving forces of greed, lust, and pride.
Which the Fargo guys have all three of those in abundance. At least the funny looking one does, at least.
Yep. So, yeah.
So it's like it's just kind of a study of just like people having to live in a world with evil. You've got these good people. You've got the
the sleazy rich people in the cities who are uncaring for others. And
who don't communicate with their wives and
yep.
have no real relationship with their child.
Yep.
Because, like, you can tell that Margie's niceness is genuine. But Mr. Lundegaard, his niceness is very put on. It is very much a facade for him. Because he's a salesman, right? He's got to sell people on his ideas. And he is very bad at selling people at his ideas. He barely even sold the guys he hired to kidnap his wife on the concept.
It's like, this doesn't make any sense. What do you want us to kidnap your wife?
And then give you the money.
And her back? What?
What?
Just go with it. You know what? Okay, fine.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah. And he can't convince his father-in-law to let him handle the briefcase exchange. And
he can't convince his father-in-law of anything because his father-in-law isn't convinced of him, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a real sort of passive-aggressive antagonistic relationship that gets...
Which, it's outwardly nice. They're outwardly polite, but there's some deep-seated just like...
disdain.
Yeah. That it's an interesting like study of the Midwest nice.
Yep.
In its many forms.
Because it's not as if like sort of the human flaws and lack of charity, to put it mildly, go away, with that outward politeness. But Marge's character is sort of a reminder that there is a genuine element to sort of the classic Minnesota nice.
Oh yeah. You get those people all over the place.
Because the Coen brothers could have just made everybody in the movie terrible.
Which, if it was a more modern movie, that might have been the way they go. Because like, there if there is no good, and there's no everybody's a human, everybody's got a problem. But like, no, there's good people who do good things.
So yeah,
there it is.
Fargo.
That's about it.
Lest we circle it forever. We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, it was funny though. Like at the beginning of the movie, they pull up to this bar or whatever. It was like, yep, that's definitely a place that really exists in Fargo. We're just like, we can't do this the whole movie, can we? It's like,
you've got to suspend your disbelief a little bit.
Yeah,
it's harder to suspend when you grew up in the town that they take place in. But
also, unless they fabricated one of the exit signs, like that dealership on. Was actually in the cities because I saw the exit sign for Xenia Park Place, which I drove past. A lot when I was living down there.
I think a good portion of it was filmed on location. I think,
and some of the people lived in Edina, which
the guy was talking. Okay, the guy was talking up. The guy was talking. That's like a great cultural subtle detail. The guy was talking up how he's got this nice job at Honeywell, which is a corporation that was based out of Minnesota. And he lives in Edina now, and he's got a nice house because the rich cake eating MFers live in Edina. That's what everybody knows about Edina from Minnesota. So, actually, Eden Prairie, which is even fancier. That's such a great detail. But speaking of great details, but go on for too long. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Certainly, head on over to our Twitter and whatever, and try to follow that. I guess we'll maybe post something on there. And I suppose it's called X now, isn't it? Yeah, no. So
but it's still called Twitter.
The URL still says twitter.com.
When you type in twitter.com, it will take you to X.
Well, you type in x.com and it'll show Twitter still in some browsers. I tell you what. But yeah, no. Regardless of all the tweet faces and book twits and whatnot, and we just want you keep listening to the podcast. Palladian Papists. Yeah, we're gonna keep making this stuff. We're on obviously Spotify if you're listening there, or Apple Podcasts or what have you, and try to get some hot cocoa out there and. Maybe have get some nice hot dish or something ready and make a.
And if you ever want us to cover something, just shoot us an email.
Oh yeah, shoot us an email.
We'll be sure to do that for
Palladian Papists at Gmail. That's where we're at. That's you can
find us
shoot us over an email, or you can't really give us a buzz because we don't have our.
You could send us an old fax.
Yeah.
But I'm having trouble reading that. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that was yeah.
That was a good
Yep.
bit.
Yep. But yeah, no, that's about what we got for you. We'll catch you later then. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Well, take care.
Oh, for sure. That was just Minnesota goodbye. The podcast.
Yeah.
It was like 15 minutes. Oh, you should probably start your car now. It's getting
Oh, yeah.
I suppose.
You gotta watch out for deer. You know,
Oh,
they
yeah.
like to come out around this time of year. It's deer hunting, and you know they get to start running around on those county roads. You gotta watch out.
Yeah, well, suppose.
Suppose.
About that time.
Suppose.
About that time.
You gotta do the knee slap. Yep. All right. Talk to you later. Now. Take care.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Bye.